Episode 1, Season 1 of the Higher Health Podcast. And today we've got a very special guest from one of my favorite local dispensaries and herbal locations, a place where you can go buy a bunch of delicious herbs. We have special guest here, Jonathan Velazquez, who is a tonic herbalist and detoxification specialist. Is that accurate, Jonathan here?
Accurate.
I
Yes,
love
sir.
it. Man, I appreciate you being on with us here today. Thank you for being the very first guest of the Higher Health Podcast. How are you rocking? How is your health? How high are you?
Doing great. Feeling great. Thank you for having me, Joey.
Man, I'm very excited to learn a little bit more about your background, your history, how you got into this really wonderful industry, both from a cannabis perspective and also obviously from just a health perspective. This show called Higher Health, we are going to be discussing all kinds of what I'll call non-traditional, but also traditional health methods, right? Because the world that we know today, this Western medicine isn't the only way to be healthy, to maintain a good, solid, higher health, right?
Absolutely. And a
Awesome.
lot of other systems for a long time.
Woo-wee, and I'm excited to learn about it. So, getting into herbalism, tonic herbalism, how did you first connect with Dave, the owner, founder of Mother Nature's Remedy? How did you guys connect over there? How did you get into the role that you have today over there as the lead, I'll call it the lead herbalist?
Yes, sir. So me and Dave actually first met when I was working at Dragon Herbs and studying to be a tonic herbalist. So that was probably around 2010, 2011. So I was working for Ron T. Garden's Dragon Herbs for about 4 years. At the same time I was working there, he had a 3-year certification course in tonic herbalism. So I was doing that at the same time. And then Dave was coming in and we got to know each other. I was helping him with some of the things he was working on. And through the years, we just stayed in contact. We stayed on the same page. It seemed like every time we would fall out of contact, we would get back together and talk 2, 3, 4 months later. And we were talking about the next herb or the next technology that we were finding. Like when we both found hyperbaric chambers together, it was the same exact time. It was very interesting. So long story short, fast forward a couple years later, I was working at Dr. Scholl's. His assistant had come in. They were looking for a manager to manage the new wellness center they were building. And, she said, "Oh my God, you'd be perfect. I got to have you introduce you to the owner." And then she gives me Dave's number.
I love it. I love it. Pretty organic method. You're already on your grind. You're on your educational path. Next thing you know, you are the perfect guy for the job. Friend of a friend, perfect timing. All the roads point in the direction of, man. Let's get you in let's get you in an herbal wellness center. You know what I mean? Let's have you touching these plants, these herbs, and getting them in the hands of more and more people.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
talk to me a little bit about how you first began your journey into herbal medicine and healing. When is there some correlation between when you started, using cannabis as well as, other types of herbal medicines?
If I'm really looking at it and I'm looking at my timeline, cannabis was actually the first herbal medicine I used for sure to deal with emotional pain, emotional stress. So I lost my dad at the end of 8th grade, and that's pretty much when I started smoking cannabis with my friends. And it was just very soothing. It was a real comforting herb, helped me get through that time.
Mm-hmm.
But where I really got started in this journey that I'm on now started when I joined the wrestling team in high school. So when I joined, I was 180 pounds, and they did all the assessments. They checked my fat, they checked my water weight, and they determined I should be wrestling at 163 pounds.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that required 3-day water fasts. And by the time I would get on the scale, I'd make weight, but I would be terribly depleted of energy. I would lose my matches pretty much immediately. My very first match, he just shot on me, broke my rib. Don't know if it had to do with me just being water fasted. But luckily, one of my coaches had read about juicing green vegetables, and he just mentioned it in one of the practices one day. So coincidentally, we had a juicer from when my dad had been sick. So I pulled it up from the basement and I just started listening to all the tapes and all the different fruits and veggies and all the different aspects that they had and the qualities that they could bring to the table in terms of like beets for nitric oxide to get more blood flow, pineapples with the skin, you get the bromelain, so it helps with joint inflammation. So I just started doing 3-day juice fasts instead of 3-day water fasts. And lo and behold, lost more weight than doing water fasts. My energy was through the roof. I was pretty much sleeping 4 hours a night. You know, that's what I always tell people. It was like my most dialed in
Man,
ever
I
at
gotta get on. I
17.
gotta get on that. That sounds like the billionaire $1 billion mindset and body and health maintenance program right there.
Absolutely. It's unreal, you know, what that live juice and the live enzymes can do for the body. And so my wrestling career just went through the roof at that point. I didn't have a lot of technique. You know, they only brought the wrestling program to my school when I was a junior.
Mm-hmm.
And but my senior year, I'm at top level, going with the best guys, you know, doing tournaments, going down to the finals.
Wow.
So it was an amazing eye opener. And that's when I really had seen the alchemy and what you could do with herbs and just simple fruits and veggies.
Yeah.
And that just springboarded it into everything else.
Man, that's super. That springboarded into all of this other knowledge and education and this passion for herbalism. Now, when it comes to getting these certifications or getting knowledge and education, talk to me about some of those classes and courses and certifications, maybe what you went through and how long it took and whatnot.
Yep, absolutely. So um, I went to SUNY Binghamton, upstate New York, and I started my undergrad as pre-med. So my idea was, let me go, I'll get the letters next to my name, I'll become an MD, and I can operate from within the system. So the issue was, luckily, my school was very connected to Cornell Medical, and it was like a streamlined program. So we got to sit down and interview med students. And I realized the whole 4 years and even more, because then I'd be going to med school, just indoctrinating me with prescriptions and surgery, and
Mm-hmm.
mainly connecting symptoms to prescriptions. And so I realized at that point I wasn't willing to commit that much of my time just to get those letters next to my name. It wasn't
Yeah.
the path that I was on.
No, that makes perfect sense because are we frozen? Oh, I think we are. Give us one moment here while we navigate through some technical difficulties here. Per usual, nothing too crazy, you guys. Give us a moment. I'm trying to bring him out here and back on. Well, all right, you guys. So while we have these technical difficulties, we've got a little bit of a blurb here with the Wi-Fi and the connection service. We've got Jonathan Velazquez here from Mother Nature's Remedy talking tonic, herbalism, and detoxification, and really having a great conversation until right now. So let's try to get him. Get that rocking. Good time for you guys to like, follow, and subscribe. We're on the North American Weed Tour. This is the Higher Health Podcast. This is the first episode. Of course, we got to get through some kinks. Mother Nature's Remedy, of course, is a dispensary in Woodland Hills, California. They also offer a variety of herbs and other alternative medicine as well. You can also get I believe it's some kind of light sauna. It's a really interesting sauna experience there. Something that I highly recommend. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about tonic herbalism and detoxification. We've got a special guest. Hopefully he'll be back here shortly. Just waiting for him to click the link again, and we'll get him to join back. Question wise, he just shared a little bit about how he got into herbal medicine and healing. Sharing some insights about his wrestling matches and going through these water fasts, and then eventually switching back over to a juicing fast. He saw his father using this juicing device, and ultimately ended up kind of going the same path, being able to use the juicing and creating the right ingredients to produce juices that helped him cut weight, stay energized, and perform at a very high level. And that's very interesting. We also discuss a little bit about his cannabis consumption, and how long it really takes to gain certifications as an herbologist to really get that MD. It's no easy task. It's no easy feat. It takes time. It takes dedication. You've got to really study and get a great understanding of all these different things. All right. We've got some more questions to go before we get back, so let's go ahead and give it one moment. I appreciate you all for hanging out. 1 second. All right, here we go. We've got him back, my man.
Fellas, I apologize. My phone overheated.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. I've had that happen. I've had that happen before. It's a warm one out there.
It is, yeah. But can you see me okay?
I can. There we go.
All right, awesome.
Perfect.
So,
All right. Well, while you were gone, I just briefly caught those back up and gave them a quick summary of what we were talking about. Jonathan, I appreciate you hanging out. We've only got a few more questions. So, uh, you were wrestling. You discovered juicing with your dad and his sickness, and how that kind of helped him there. And then you realized that they could help you with the wrestling to maintain, to cut body weight, to juice for the 3 days, and also maintain your energy. Now, it sounds to me like you were kind of creating somewhat of like a tonic, or leveraging various ingredients to really change your body for those 3 days. Talk to me a little bit more about what it's like to create these tonics that really help people, and how they can really ultimately, like, the types of impact various tonics can have on your body.
yeah, absolutely. So, tonic, when you talk about herbalists and they have different um, attachments at the front, tonic for me really called to me above anything else, because you can have medicinal herbs, you can have clinical herbs. I like the idea of clinical herbalism because you're applying it to real settings and quantifiable results. But
Mm-hmm.
tonic herbs, when we're talking about tonic, these are herbs that are also known as adaptogenic or adaptogens. And these are herbs you can take every single day, and they're just going to help each system that they're working on just stay balanced and as strong as possible, but steady and balanced, meaning you can't take too much of those herbs and then you're going to burn that system out. Or, you'll take too much of one of them and it'll make your blood pressure too low or something like that. So, for
Yep.
example, hawthorn berry is amazing. It's an absolutely beautiful tonic herb for the heart. This is an herb you can take every single day of your life. And they've even done studies in China with dogs, and it was very unfortunate that they did it with the dogs, but you got to see it is amazing for protecting the heart from stress. And they gave these dogs heart attacks, and even the dogs that had heart attacks, the ones with hawthorn, you couldn't see stress from the heart. You couldn't see scar tissue from the heart attack. So
Wow.
that's a beautiful example of an herb specifically tonic for the heart. Another one that is just unbelievably resourceful at regenerating the liver is milk thistle. Milk thistle, as a standalone for the liver, you can take every single day. And, in this day and age, people are drinking, people are taking prescriptions. There's a lot of things that are taking a toll on the liver. So to take milk thistle every single day is a great thing for that liver, and just to keep it protected, and
Yeah.
again, protected from stress.
I've not heard of the hawthorn berry, but I've heard of the milk thistle. Myself, I suffer from IBS, a little bit of Crohn's, and then kidney stones is the reason I have both of those. And
Mm,
so milk thistle to me was introduced very, early on when I started suffering kidney stones around 2009 and 10. And ultimately I started just taking a little bit of milk thistle, pineapple enzymes, and a variety of other things, in health form, in fruit form at the end of the day to really help even change my own insides and my dietary path.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Very
great
interesting.
thing to do.
Now, in terms of detoxes, what is a detox? And how important is performing detoxes on your body? Is it a regular thing? Is it an every now and then? Is it once a year? I feel like it's like something only if people do occasionally, like throughout their
Mhm.
life, instead of like a regular thing.
Yeah, great question. I have people that get into cleansing and detoxing and then they want to do it all the time. And for me, I like to look at it as something you should do less than mineralizing the body. So I look at it as something that when I was taught, you should do it seasonally. So you start the year, it's a great time to do some detoxing or cleansing. Going into spring, another great time. Maybe going into the fall, getting ready for winter, another great time. And the way I was taught to do it is you always want to start with the intestines. You have all these
Hmm.
different eliminative organs. You have the intestines, you have the liver, you have the kidneys, you have the skin, and the lungs. So you want to start with detoxing the biggest bulk mass, and that's your intestinal tract. So detoxing that once or twice a year is a great idea. January, maybe again, 6 months later around June. The
Yeah.
liver, it's a great idea to do that once a year. So you can really focus on that once a year, bringing in the milk thistle and dandelion. We have a great detox at Mother Nature's Remedy. So I highly recommend if you guys are interested in going further with that, I can help guide you. MotherNature'sRemedy.com is the website. But there's a lot of different herbs involved because now not only are we taking tonic herbs like milk thistle, but the things like dandelion, and then we go a little deeper with things like chaparral. Now we go into really cleaning up the blood and cleaning up the filters, so that those organs can work at their best. And so they're doing their job the best they can. And we're living in this world that we're constantly getting an overabundance of toxins coming in. Sometimes they get overburdened. So by cleaning them out, just like an oil filter, you're doing your oil change every 3 6 months. Same thing with the body. We clean those organs out routinely, especially after 30 years old.
Hmm.
30 plus, we should be doing yearly cleansing and detoxing, keep the machine operating at its optimal level.
Absolutely. And at that point, with sharing that, and it's such an important game right there. Obviously diet is such an important component to overall health, right? So we're talking about these various organs and muscles in the body, right? And why we're talking about detoxing it is because of the things we put into our body, right? And how we treat it, what we ingest and what we consume. So talk a little bit about how the importance of diet and how that overall impacts your health, right? There's so many different ailments out there, and your body has natural abilities, right? Natural mechanisms to handle things, to do certain stuff. Everybody has their own ability to do pretty much everything that we can encounter, right? But diet impacts our ability to just survive, thrive, and experience life. So can you expand on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. And that's a great point because the diet is everything because it's the compound interest throughout the year. Every single day, we need to take in food, we need to live and breathe and drink water. So that's the focal. Everything should be built around that and looking at what are good times to eat throughout the day. And for me, the big pitfalls, and these are things that are really unavoidable at this point, are things that are insidious throughout the entire food supply. So one of the things to think about, one of the healthiest forms of protein is fish, in my opinion. Wild fish is one of the best protein sources, but we've done a beautiful job of polluting the ocean so much that there's heavy metals in the really big fish like tuna, and even going down to the medium-sized fish like salmon. So
Hmm.
we need to be cognizant of that because now even the healthy foods are now polluting our bodies. So that's why detoxing is so important at the same time. But now
Yeah.
we move on to the vegetarian side of things. What are most of us getting our carbohydrates from? Grains. And a lot of grains have been completely dumped on with Roundup and glyphosate. So that's another thing that's permeating through the food supply, and that's in the feedlots. So even if you're eating mostly animal, if they're factory farm, you're getting it. And that stuff is wreaking havoc on the gut and causing leaky gut and hurting the good probiotics. So being aware of these things is important. And that's where, especially with grains, I try and focus more on whole food tubers and roots. So things like sweet potatoes and squashes, much better choice overall than grains at this point, just to minimize the amount of toxins and glyphosate you're
Yeah.
putting in the body. With the
That's
fish,
huge.
staying away from the big fish is key. So wild salmon, tuna, you really want to avoid at this point in the game, again, because of what we've done to the oceans, not because tuna are inherently bad. Um, and the small fish are actually the cleanest now. So sardines and anchovies, things like that, are some of the cleanest fish you can put in your body.
That's wild. It's not a huge surprise because obviously fish and they're eating other organisms and the entire habitat has been compromised in that world, in that sphere. So I mean, it all does add up and point directly at humans, just really really messing things up.
We've done
Um,
a great job.
now, with that, even with that said, right there, right? Even what did you say? Even the bad, even the healthy stuff can now potentially be bad and is polluting our body. So that leads to this next question that I have is, there's obviously obstacles in society that just present certain challenges, right? What would you say are some of the biggest obstacles in American society for someone trying to reach, their natural optimum wellness?
Well, the glyphosate side of it is probably one of the bigger ones. I would say fish, not as much, because I don't think as much of the population really focuses on fish. But some of the other big things that people need to look out for is, number one, high fructose corn syrup. You have to look for that in any ingredient labels, any drinks you're buying, any packaged foods. That's one of the things that will really just streamline you into type 2 diabetes. Um,
Good, we're good.
Another thing to really look at is the oils that are being used in foods. So most restaurants are still using canola oil, and that is one of the worst things for the body. It's really high omega-6 and causes a lot of inflammation in the body when we should be focusing more on omega-3s. So that's another thing, because everybody eats out. There's Uber Eats, there's Postmates. Most restaurants are still using this bad canola oil,
Man,
and it's because it's cheap. And so that's one of the biggest things to look out for. One of the last biggest things to look out for that are insidious throughout the food supply is bad salt. Bad salt that's been stripped of all the other minerals. And again, it's cheap. It's an easy way to keep it from going and developing any type of bacteria or anything. So they strip the salt and they iodize it, and you don't have any of the other trace minerals. So we've lost that good salt, and that's one of the big issues now, which is why sodium has been demonized. It's because it hasn't been left in its whole food form, which is how the body knows how to use it.
wow.
And so those are the big things: high fructose corn syrup, canola oil, bad salt, looking at grains that have glyphosate in them, and then heavy metal contamination. Those are the big ones to look at. And some of the healthy alternatives for sweeteners, we can focus on trying to minimize our sweeteners, but I find things like monk fruit and stevia, if you can handle that taste, great options. Instead of canola oil, one of the best things you can cook with is avocado oil.
Hmm.
And a lot of restaurants, that's a really expensive alternative. So if at least they're using olive oil, that's a great alternative. Um, Talking about salt, for me, a nice, cheap sea salt that we don't have to worry about other things and a whole other conversation is microplastics, is Redmond sea salt. So that's from old deep ocean beds that we know aren't from current ocean beds or current oceans that may have contamination in them. So that's a great choice for salt. And then again, for the heavy metals and the glyphosate, these are things that we really need to just be cognizant. We can't ultimately avoid. They're going to get in the body. So doing that yearly detoxing is the key to keeping those safe levels in the body.
It's all about balance, right? And whether it's the food you put in your bodies, or the minerals, or the tonics, or the herbs, or the sugars that you choose to consume, or the syrups that you use, all these things in overabundance definitely cause problems. And so it's always going to be all about balance, right? And finding that even balance. And so one of the new, we'll call it's I don't want to call it a trend, but it's more popular than ever, right? I don't want to call it the ultimate solution, because I don't think legally anybody can say that yet. But psilocybin is one of these new alternative medicine health options that's out there now. I don't know the right verbs, or the right adjectives for this. And talk to me a little bit about how you see that being incorporated into society, right? Because now you've got people with food problems, you've got mental health problems, we've got decriminalization of all kinds of different drugs going into effect across the globe in various countries, and now here psilocybin in a couple major states and cities. What are your thoughts on psilocybin and kind of where that's going, and how that all intersects with the concept of higher health?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And I love to see that all of these different facets of the herbal realm are actually being brought to light now, because this is one of those aspects that has been used for a long time. The psychedelics, as we've classified them, and especially psilocybin, there's a lot to talk about with that, and it's a whole other topic. But when you look at it and how it can be applied and how it is being applied right now, a lot of what I do is what you can consider bottom up. I work on the physical, and I work on transforming the physical so that the mental and emotional will end up balancing out. So that's my focus. But a lot of work is being done now with psilocybin and a top-down approach, where people with mental and emotional issues, they're using that to really help people gain a perspective. And that's a lot of times what can happen with mental and emotional issues is people are stuck in a certain perspective and they can't get out of that. They can't see over the rut that they're in. So by using things like that, it'll create this perspective that they've never had before. It takes them outside of their perspective, and it can give people an aha. That's what I'll call it. It's like an aha moment where you can really understand something in a way that it never clicked before, and it can change everything for you. It can change everything for the positive and give you a whole new lease on life.
I've heard people mention it's helping them with their pain. Having them get the little bit of body high from the certain kinds of strain is pain relieving for them, and that euphoria helps them escape that and whatnot. So many different stories I've heard and use cases similar to cannabis in a lot of ways, about the combination of various things really does help alleviate various, we'll call it chronic ailments to some capacity. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And, to speak to that, it's things like Paul Stamets, for instance. He's got the biggest claim to fame. He talks about the Stamets stack. I believe it was his mom dealing with dementia, and he basically created a stack using psilocybin, lion's mane, and niacin, and using those reopen these pathways in her brain, reconnected avenues that had been lost or deteriorated, and really helped her regain her health, her whole function of life. So there is absolutely physical aspects to it, and microdosing speaks to that. It speaks to opening up pathways of the brain that either were degenerated or lost or had never been opened before.
Yeah.
So you'll hear higher level people talking about, oh, wow, it's really helping me with creativity, taking my creation to the next level. And that's exciting, bringing these
Yeah.
things in and using what was already there and what tribes have been using for millennia. It's an exciting time to bridge that gap.
So there's clearly a code, just like how, in cannabis, people talk about cracking the code for these strains, right? Getting them to really achieve the full expression of whatever they could potentially be, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's where with humans too, we all have a different varying levels of potential, and I think we're seeing that a combination of great diet, good fitness, and overall health and wellness, right? A good, not to say you have to consume cannabis to be healthy, but finding a various way to use cannabis and infuse it into your life, right? From maybe an inflammation standpoint is ideal. And then also to leveraging various herbs, mushrooms, fungi, in this instance, when it comes to, as you said, psilocybin, all these different things, working together can really create an ideal blend of herbalism, cannabis, and psychedelic use to contribute to an overall better health. Now, a lot of these kinds of products are available at Mother Nature's, which is where you work, Mother Nature's Remedy and Wellness. The psilocybin is not, I would assume, right?
No, not
Not
yet.
yet. Not
Until
yet.
it's legal in California, keep everything above board.
So my final question for you guys is, what kinds of health and wellness products do you guys offer at Mother Nature's Remedy that you would feel what could be a good entry level, introduction to people that are watching this? Maybe they're in California and SoCal, they're coming by where they could stop by, talk to you. What's a good, 2 to 3 different entry level products for someone to just start seeing that incremental growth in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first products I would recommend to people, and again, talking to foundational mineralization, Dr. Show's Superfood Plus powder. That is a great thing for anyone to bring in. It's a whole food vitamin and mineral supplement. So that's going to give the body some of the pieces that might be missing, the trace minerals, alkalizing, bringing down the inflammation, giving you energy. Second thing I would say, if anybody's dealing with sleep issues, CBD, talking about cannabis, that's a beautiful addition to a nighttime sleep program, along with whole food magnesium. So we have the bone renewal product for whole food magnesium, and then we have our Easy Night Sleep Spray, which is a great CBD formula that gets you into that deep REM sleep.
Yep.
So then the third foundational product, I would say, if somebody wanted to try and start exploring what the mushrooms can do for you, we have a product called Infinity 8, and that's from Native Mystic, and that's pretty much all of the non-psychoactive mushrooms. You have reishi, you have lion's mane, you have chaga. It's been enhanced with other things like shilajit, which is great source of fulvic acid, and it just amplifies the effect of the mushrooms. So
Wow.
that's a great triple play right there to get you in the game. And I'm always open for questions. I'm there Tuesday to Friday. And so anybody want to come down, please feel free. We'd love to
Man,
have
Jonathan Velazquez here with the triple play to end the interview. I really appreciate your time today, my man. This was a really great first episode here of the Higher Health Podcast. Thank you again. Everybody, make sure you guys go check out Jonathan's work and his team down there at Mother Nature's Remedy and Wellness there in Woodland Hills, California. They've got a lot of great herbs, a lot of great, they've got everything from protein powders to herbs to teas, all kinds of great stuff. And then you talk to the security guard, he'll push you in a little button, and then you go to the back and get some weed at the dispenser. You can even buy clones. It's a really, really cool experience. Jonathan, thank you again for your time. Everybody, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. Talk that shit, do what you got to do, but no matter what, we're going to give you some game about the higher health and how to achieve overall better wellness on this. Jonathan, thank you again.
Thank you, Joey. Have a great one.
I'll see you in IRL here very soon, okay? Colin and I will be stopping by to get some juices. You know those are my favorite, man.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Have a good day. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.